Thank you for joining us for the school board. Now, just some background. The school board is elected at first in primaries. The top two candidates from each district advance, but now the entire city, most of the city that's in the San Diego Unified School District can weigh in on these races. And so we're excited to have this. I'd like to turn this mic now over to Will Carless, our investigative journalist who covers a lot of education issues. Will, take it away.
Is this on? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. This is obviously the main event. I mean, no one's really that interested in the mayor's race or anything like that. Let's get straight on to the important stuff, right? So I wanted to just, first of all, introduce the four candidates here. One of the candidates hasn't been able to make it today, Marnie Foster. She's running for the same sub-district as Bill Ponder here. The seat being vacated by Sheila Jackson, who is retiring from the school board. But we do have here today, first of all, John Evans, who is the sitting school board president. He's been on the school board now for almost coming up for 4 years, right, John? And is obviously the incumbent. John is being challenged for his seat by Mark Powell, sitting directly here to my right. Mark, I believe, is this is the first campaign you've run, right? Correct. Yes, okay. Mark's a resident of University City, yes, and a businessman, and is obviously challenging John Evans. Then next to John, we've got Richard Barrera, who is not running against anybody. He's just come along to share his informative to share his information. So, and then we've got Bill Ponder sitting right here. Bill is running for the seat, as I said, vacated by Sheila Jackson. Hasn't really got anyone to debate here today because Marnie's not here, but nevertheless will let us know where he stands on things. So first of all, I'd like to give each one of these candidates 2 minutes just to introduce themselves, and I'm going to cut them off after 2 minutes so that you can learn a little bit more about them. So why don't we start with John? We'll work our way this way.
Okay. Up there or over there?
Just use that mic, yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Lee Evans. I'm the candidate from, is this on? Can you hear me? Okay, start the time now. Okay. I'm John Lee Evans. I'm the candidate for school board. I'm currently the school board president. I ran 4 years ago because I cared very passionately about education. I knew we could do a lot better, and we've done a lot in terms of broadening the curriculum, college prep programs, career tech programs. We're really changing the way that we're measuring success, so we're not just sticking to standardized test scores. We've really made a push for neighborhood schools. We've cut down on the transportation budget, so we have more money for the classroom. The biggest cuts we've made have been in administration, so we can keep the money in the classroom. This year it became impossible to keep cutting administration, so we had to cut in the classroom. We were going to lose about 1,500 teachers. We were able to work together with the union, sit down, negotiate a deal where September 4th was a fairly uneventful day because we had a successful first day of school. We've also placed an emphasis on neighborhood schools, as I said, and finally on accountability.
You can have a little bit of extra time if a plane goes overhead.
Stop the clock. Okay, my final point is about accountability. We really need to hold our superintendent, our principals, and our teachers accountable. And this is one way that I disagree with my opponent. We have given the superintendent more power to hire and fire principals and vice principals. When he was a vice principal for the district, he was fired from that position, demoted from that position, upheld by the school board, and then turned around and sued the taxpayers. We don't want this to happen. We want the superintendent to have the power to have the right people in place. And we also want the principals to hold our teachers accountable. We really need to have a comprehensive evaluation system so that we're very clear on what we need in terms of our teachers too. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Richard, you're obviously, you don't have a stump speech and you're not kind of running against anyone. So why don't you spend your 2 minutes maybe talking about the biggest issues facing the school board and sort of maybe proposing some issues that we should be talking about?
Well, thank you, Will, and thanks everyone for being out here. Political junkies on a Saturday afternoon. You never would have thought this was San Diego. Look, how many people here grew up in California and went to public school? I think that's right. I think most of us did. Like a lot of us, I had the privilege of growing up at a time when our parents' generation and our grandparents' generation invested in public education. They built the greatest public education system that anybody had ever seen at that point. when we talk about our K-12, our community colleges, our Cal State University, our University of California. And look, I mean, you know, our parents were not in great economic circumstances. My mom, her family were immigrants from Europe that came through Ellis Island. My father came here from Colombia. But in difficult economic circumstances, they decided that the most important thing that they could do is invest in our education system so that the next generation of Californians could create a prosperous future, and that's what they did. I think the question for all of us here today is, when we look at the fact that we are now number 47 in the country in spending per student, and you know, where most of our statistics in terms of our investment as Californians in public education has dropped to near bottom, what is it going to take for us to come together and find that consensus to once again make California's public schools the best in the country and to make San Diego schools the best in the country? There's a lot of things that we find to disagree about. The question is, can we get past those issues, find where our consensus is so we can rebuild our schools so that the next generation can create a great California again?
Thanks, Richard. I don't know how he does that. That was exactly 2 minutes, so well done. Moving on to Bill.
Good afternoon.
Is that one on?
Good afternoon. 30 years of experience, folks. So I come to public education with a lot of experience. K-12, community college. Spent almost a decade at the University of California that Richard talked about. So I'm running because it's important, I think, for the board to have the kind of experience that I bring. You know, it's interesting when the folks who are on the board talk about the things that they're doing, but what they fail to mention is that we're entering in the third year of program improvement under No Child Left Behind. That means half of the kids in this district, are having problems with reading and writing and math. The other thing is this. I know that people talk about accountability, but that runs both ways. It runs both ways in terms of teachers and parents and others being accountable, but also in terms of elected officials being accountable. So I think one of the ways to do that is you have to put people in there who are in there for only the reason that they need to be in there. And the only reason why I'm running is to go in and do what we need to do for students first, do the accountability piece, and get more community people involved. I made this statement to the Voice of San Diego when I first started to run. I am not interested and will not seek any other office. You see, part of the situation, as you know, is that some people run, and then they get ready to run for something else. They want to run for the Senate or the Assembly or Congress. I am only interested in fixing this problem, period.
Thanks, Bill. Moving on to Mark Powell, who's challenging John, as I said earlier.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for sitting out here in the hot sun and coming to hear this debate. And I'd like to thank the Voice of San Diego for holding a Politifest. I'm running for District A, which encompasses Claremont University City and Mira Mesa. Good news is I won the primary election. The voters in my opponent's very own district has sent a loud message saying that they are not happy with the current leadership, and I won that primary election. A little bit about my background. First and foremost, I'm the proud parent of two beautiful daughters who attend San Diego City schools. One in 2nd grade and one in 5th grade. I'm married. I currently reside in University City. I myself am a product of San Diego Unified School District. I'm a former classroom teacher, vice principal, dean of students. I'm also an adjunct professor at National University where I teach in the School of Education. I teach the teachers in the credentialing program. And I was a reserve police officer for 3 years where I patrolled the streets of San Diego, keeping it safe for all of us. It looks like my opponent is going to start slinging some mud here early on in the campaign with some poor information. Yes, it's true. I was a vice principal and I was reassigned back to the classroom. And the reason was I stood up to Alan Burson. Does everybody know who Alan Burson is? Well, Two things are going to happen if you stand up to Alan Burson. You're either going to get reassigned or you're going to get reassigned. And I got reassigned. I spent 1 year in the classroom and immediately became a vice principal for the Santee School District for 4 years. Currently, I own and operate my own real estate company. But I'm running because I can't stand by and watch this district be run by misguided leadership and poor decisions. One example, my opponent has voted to cut the school year to the shortest school year in the world. If we look here at this little chart, I'm going to show you. Currently, China has a 200-day school year. Germany has a 240-day school year. Japan has a 243. Through their negotiations, they cut the school year to 175. We're already low at 180.
Mark, I'm going to cut you off in 5 seconds, so finish it off.
Misguided leadership or absolutely no leadership on the board. When the trustees aren't trusted, they need to go.
Thank you. So when I moved to this country about 10 years ago, I thought that the most important thing in politics, right, was who was in the White House, who was the president. And then over the years, as I've lived here, I've come to realize that really the impact on your life, who's going to be impacting your life day to day, especially if you've got kids, you know, in the grand scale of things, who's sitting on your local school board is of huge importance to that. So one of the other things I've come to realize in California is that you know, public education has come under a whole lot of stress over the last few years. And I wanted to move on to the first thing I wanted to discuss, which is the you know, pretty awful financial situation in this state and how that's impacted school districts. Now, a few months ago, we were talking about insolvency at San Diego Unified. We were talking about massive deficits. We managed to craft a deal with the teachers union and managed to get out of the immediate problem. But again, in 2013-14, we're facing, I think it's around $100 million deficit. How do we fix this short-term problem? Do the tax increases that are on the ballot in November, are they going to go far enough? How do we get through next year? Let's start with John again.
Okay, this is a very serious problem, and this is one of the reasons why we have the two propositions on the ballot, 30 and 38, which are really a chance for the public to weigh in on funding public education. We, as I said, have had a cumulative effect of over $400 million of cuts over the past 4 years, and we're still standing. Our test scores have still been going up despite what you're hearing. We've made big increases, but we need more money, and the only way we can do that is by voting for propositions 30 and 38 so that we can adequately fund our public schools. We are always in a situation of year by year. I hope we eventually get to a 2-year budget cycle, because it's ridiculous when we have to project the year after and the year after in terms of what's going on when the state only gives us the money 1 year at a time. In fact, some of the money for this year they don't give us until next year. So we need to have the proper funding for public education. It's a problem for all of California. The issue of shortening the school year is really an issue of what the only solution the governor has come up with. The other districts that haven't negotiated are still going to have to cut their school year by 3 weeks if Proposition 30 doesn't pass.
John, let me put that to your opponent, Mark. I mean, we constantly hear from school districts, we need more money, we need more money, we need more money. Do they need more money, or are they just not managing the money that they have well enough?
Well, let's just listen to what he just said. Sure, everyone can use more money, but he just said they cut the budget and raised test scores. You cut the budget and you raise test scores. So he's telling us there's no real correlation between money and test scores. That's what he just said. Of course, teachers need to be compensated appropriately, and there's ways to do that. But when you have no leadership on the board, when you have a board member here who's giving away 7.2% raises when there's absolutely no money, he can't keep his promise, has to fire teachers and then rehire them, and you have another board member who's declaring insolvency, these guys are 10 feet away from each other. Who's running the show? There's no leadership. This is like that cruise ship. Wouldn't you know the cruise ship that crashed in Italy? Wouldn't you have liked if someone would have just grabbed that wheel and turned it just a little bit and get it away from the rocks before it actually capsizes? These guys, he's going to capsize this district. This is what I mean by misguided leadership and poor decisions.
Thank you, Mark.